The Ajman Fort is housed in one of the oldest functioning buildings in the UAE. Ajman Fort is located on the east side of the central square in the Al Bustan area. This fort, originally constructed around 1775, was rebuilt between 1820 to 1830 following its destruction by British battleships. It served as the ruler's residence until 1970. For a decade after that, the fort housed the Ajman police station, before being converted into the present-day museum. Flanked by a collection of imposing cannons, what greets you as you enter the museum gate, bordered by 2 watch towers, are discoveries from an ancient burial site found at Muwayhat, on the outskirts of the city. We get a glimpse of Sheikh Rashid's room on the upper floor that has on display some of his personal items of use, such as swords and sheaths, firearms, gifts from visiting dignitaries, and official documents. We walk across the pathway to enter the modest Majlis, where the former ruler, the late Sheikh Rashid bin Hamad Al Nuaimi, who ruled Ajman from 1928 to 1981, entertained his guests. Weapons including guns and swords and ammunition belts are on display here, attesting to the fort's symbol as a defense stronghold in the earlier times. Standing at the inner courtyard, the magnificence of the 200-year-old fort is on full display. A perfect example of traditional Emirati architecture. This 2-storied structure with long shaded verandas is made of fossilized coral, unearthed from the sea, and stones from neighboring Oman. All these materials, bonded with a mixture of sand, mud, seashells, and gypsum, gives low heat conductivity. Its thick walls and small windows also insulate it from extreme heat and cold. The wind tower, which is the oldest functional wind tower in the UAE. A unique ventilation system of the time, it allows hot air to rise to the top and directs cool air to the rooms beneath. And during extreme summers, sails of dhows dipped in water were hung inside this wind tower to maximize the cooling impact. We also learn how the traditional judicial system worked, and the punishment meted out to criminals of the time. Their feet shackled into the groove of a wooden log and held in place by a thick iron bar, preventing any form of movement. Those convicted of major crimes were fettered thus and left under the sun in the open desert where only family members could visit to feed them. The dates room, where we see how sacks of ripe dates let out their luscious nectar through the gunny bags that then flowed through ridged grooves on the floor and into a pot to make the delicious dibs. The traditional medicines hall gives an insight into the practices of cauterization, wet cupping, Arabian splinting and Quran remedies, and also contains a magnificent collection of herbal medicines. Artifacts excavated from the Muehat archaeological site are housed inside the Room of Archaeology, formerly the servants' quarters of the royal household. In the earlier days, a wall demarcated the living quarters of the royal family and that of the palace employees. Today, the walls have been broken down and the area expanded to include an auditorium and several additional rooms to display exhibits. The archaeological relics found at Muehat form the centerpiece of the collections at the Ajman Museum. It tells the story of a distant past, of funeral traditions and beliefs as evidenced from the large clay jars and funeral necklaces encrusted with gems such as agate from China and carnelian sourced from India, with which it enjoyed maritime trade links. The market hall, on the other hand, gives an insight into the traditional occupations such as rope making and mat weaving, pearl trading and dhow building, and elegantly portrays the way of life in the past.